Assalamu alaikum, good evening and a very warm welcome from the studios of NTV Europe. I say warm, I am not just talking about the sentiments, I am also talking about the London weather. It is about 32 degrees here, which is a little too much for us. Anyway, we have with us today a very accomplished lady, lawyer, Dr. Sonia Zaman Khan. She has an LLB honors from Dhaka University, an LLM, and she has done a PhD in law. Her research paper, the thesis for the PhD was, we'll talk about it later, but let me tell you the title, Democratic Transitions and the Caretaker Government of Bangladesh in a Culture of Mistrust. I like the word mistrust. She's qualified as a lawyer and what is called transfer test QLTT, but that means possibly she can, despite being a lawyer of one kind, she can practice as a lawyer of the other kind. Is that it?
That's a very interesting take on QLTT actually. It's basically a qualified lawyer's transfer test, which basically means that I was qualified in Bangladesh to as a lawyer, and then I cross-qualified here in the United Kingdom as well.
Right.
So instead of going through a lot of the other things that normal students go through,
right.
I was a slight little privileged of being exempted from certain papers.
Well, I'm honored to know. I'm honored to know that. The pleasure of my company.
So thank you very much for having me in your program. It's
thank
a real
you.
pleasure.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. She is also a solicitor at Supreme Court of England and Wales and an advocate at Supreme Court of Bangladesh. See, she was in one way or other, she was involved with EFL. See, I used to think EFL was English as a foreign language. See, here I saw English for law for Bangladeshi Bar Council. See, I do not know what was the purpose, but I'm sure that my guest will explain.
Well, it's funny you picked up that particular point of my life. Actually,
well, it makes life easier that way.
Which was a long time ago.
Yes.
It was actually a continuous. It was part of a continuous legal education program that the Bangladesh Bar Council was actually holding for its newly enrolled advocates.
Right.
At that point in time, as part of its curriculum, after the fresh graduates actually came out, we went through. They had to go through a training program in the Bar Council.
See.
And the English for Law, EFL, the English for Law for lawyers actually, was a course I co-designed in order to help lawyers to better articulate, what they have to say.
Their thoughts in English.
That's correct.
Yes, I see. Just a matter of interest. Do they use? Is English the language of the court in Bangladesh?
Yes, it is. It is in the High Court certainly. Although Bangla is also being used quite frequently as well. But English is, for me, thankfully, is still very much the language used in court. Yes.
Oh, great, great. Let me also mention while I am at it that her book, published by Rutledge Keegan Paul, The Politics and Law of Democratic Transitions.
There it is.
That is the PhD thesis, I think. And her other book is Herds and Shepherds. I like the name. The issue of safe custody of children in Bangladesh.
This was
and that is
product of a consultancy.
Oh, great,
yes,
great.
This was a product of a consultancy a long time ago.
So
that's here. I'm sort of showing it. I don't know whether you can see
and
it.
that was in collaboration with Save the Children UK.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. See, okay, we'll have hopefully some time to talk about these two very interesting publications. See, and in addition to all these, I do not know when she gets the time. She's also interested in interior decor and photography and traveling and possibly cooking also, because many women do have to cook to feed their family. Yes, tell us something about the person Sonia Zaman Khan, who became Dr. Sonia Zaman Khan, who became a solicitor practicing in 2 different countries, qualifying at so many stages, and doing so many things. Tell us something about you and your family.
Oh goodness. Thank you very much. Well, I think I've been blessed to be born in a Muslim and educated and cultural family, alhamdulillah. My education in our family has always been very important. My maternal great-grandfather was the Professor Sanaullah. He had completed his master's degree from Presidency College, and he was actually the vice principal of Presidency College in Calcutta.
Yeah.
My paternal grandfather, Mr. Ashraf Ali Khan, he was first class first from Calcutta University in history back in 1911. I believe he was the second person after A.K. Fazlul Haq, Shere Bangla A.K. Fazlul Haq, to have got that master's back in 1911, when it was not very common for Muslims actually to go to tertiary education.
Yeah.
My maternal grandfather, Bedouin Shamsher, he died at the age of 42. But before that, he was a lawyer, and he was also a novelist, having published 6 books. He also had a distinction from Presidency College in the BSc, in the Bachelor of Science. My maternal grandmother, my Nani, Razia Khatun, she had her master's degree from the University of Colorado back in the 60s. So you see, my grandparents and great-grandparents did so much.
Right.
Indirectly, I was under pressure to actually, whatever I did seemed inadequate in the context of the 20th, 21st
In other words, they hardly stayed home.
They hardly stayed home. And my parents, my father graduated from Dhaka University and he did his master's, but then he went to the diplomatic career. And my mom is multi-talented in the sense that she qualified as a medical doctor from Dhaka Medical College back in 1968. But then she was also a very eminent cultural personality. She represented at that point in time when it was Pakistan, the state of Pakistan in various part of the state cultural troops in various countries of the world at that point in time. So she was quite an eminent dancer, as well as a vocalist as well, a classical vocalist.
Right.
So given that background, we were not education, just to sit with education was not enough at home. There was an underlying, I would say, pressure not from parents, but we felt sort of challenged and charged to do a bit more than education. So while we were doing our studies, we were busy in mooting, in debating, in our cultural programs, in teaching foreign languages. I mean, I taught French in Alliance Française for about 10 years or so, teaching English in YMCA, Green Herald School, while studying, broadcasting in the Radio Bangladesh. So we had to be busy, it wasn't enough that we did our studies at that point in time.
True.
So that was quite interesting, I think. So I never dreamt.
It was a very cultural background.
Alhamdulillah, it was a cultural background. It was a good mix of education, culture, and religion, I think, which is quintessentially what the Bengali Muslim used to be. I think that part of Bengali Muslim is actually now a rarity. It's a very minority in the context of Bangladesh at the moment, as I go back and see. Very few families hold on to that value, of that balance between culture, Islam, education. You don't see a lot of that. You see some, but not a lot of that.
But this happens with the passage of time, as you see. This is the erosion that we have to suffer. This is not the erosion caused by wind, but the onslaught of different cultures that visit us, or when we go and visit the other cultures, we bring back some of the good and bad with us. And nowadays, with so much of development in telephone and internet and these handheld devices, that they have their own good and bad influences.
Of course. Technology has its pros and cons, absolutely. Since I debated from school days, it was sort of assumed that I would sort of do law. I wanted to be a very good advocate. And I wanted to, I was so serious and so passionate about it that when I was studying law at Dhaka University, I sort of years altogether passed by when I did not visit the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, thinking that I will only step foot when I am a qualified lawyer. You know, the
Right.
passion was so
Right.
much so.
Right.
So I guess it was in my destiny that I would become a lawyer, and it's an absolutely blessing that I'm sort of qualified in both the jurisdictions, because I'm able to help out the community here in the United Kingdom, people who have issues with, you know, sort of Bangladeshi laws, whether they're property matters, and or any other family law matters and
Right.
so forth, because I can
Right.
also take instructions
Right.
from here
Right.
and go back. So I practice here family law in the UK context, family law and immigration and civil litigation
Right.
and employment law. But in the context of Bangladesh, I can take any instructions to also help
Right.
them out, the community back home, you know.
Do they have to pay your fee in international currency?
They can pay my fees in the
Yes. Are you with us? Well, we have our guest, Dr. Sonia Khan. She is a lawyer, and we were just talking about her practice and what she does as a lawyer at the Supreme Court in Dhaka. And we were about to discuss further of her work in London. She has her own practice, but in addition to that, she also has been the South Asia Research Publications Associate and Asian Legal Advice Service, which is the acronym is ALAS. Alas, there's no reason of being despondent, but that's the acronym is. And she provides expert advice for the UK courts on BD family laws, particularly the Muslim family laws of Bangladesh. Can you hear me? I can see you.
I think I missed your point.
Yeah.
If you could kindly repeat, I think I became offline for whatever reason that was. There was some technical glitch.
Yes. Doesn't matter. You carry on where you left.
Right. I mean, so I was just.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was just saying that it's good that in a way it could be helpful for the community that I am able to help them in both jurisdictions, whether it's in the UK regarding UK law, or whether it's in Bangladesh regarding Bangladeshi laws.
Right. See.
So that's how sort of law happened, and that's how I am in this profession.
Right.
PhD was not supposed to happen, actually. I always thought that I would qualify as a barrister. So I changed my mind when I came to England, and I saw that no, it would be more helpful and practical if I became a solicitor. The PhD came in actually back in 2007-8 when we were having problems with repeated elections in Bangladesh.
Yep.
And I just kept thinking, why is it like a South Asian country always struggling to hold free and fair elections? The thought actually came from there. And I wanted to do a comparative study between Bangladesh, a country in Africa, as well as in Eastern Europe at that point in time, to see what are the problems we have, or do we have recurrent problems regarding this issue. So when I went to my PhD supervisor, Professor Wenamensky, who is a sort of professor of South Asian laws, he's a giant in himself, he said that, Sonia, that's 3 PhDs. Let's just focus on Bangladesh for now. So which is why I sort of, researched on holding elections, what is the problem? And while I was digging this, I saw that it's just not a question of holding elections. There is a deeply embedded culture of mistrust in the country, and that's just not a question of Army League and BNP. It goes way beyond, or way before that. So what I've done is I've done a trajectory of the history of democracy in our part of the world from for the last 200 years, and tried to bring in the socio-cultural, the political mosaic of that land at that point in time, and what sort of culminated to where we are at today with regard to transition between governments and elections, actually. So that study became quite interesting. And after the PhD, Rutledge seemed there aren't many work regarding this phenomenon.
Did
And
you sell a lot of copies in Bangladesh?
You see, Routledge publications are expensive.
Yes.
So it was the hard copy initially published. I sold some, not as many as I would have liked because it's extremely expensive.
Right.
This year, I got also the soft copy published, which is more affordable, and I also have the Kindle version.
Right.
So it has been given to stakeholders, but if
Right.
you say that whether mass people have it, then no, not yet.
I was thinking that if it would be a must read for older politicians and the politicians whom it is meant for.
I wish. I wish they would listen.
I'm just being naughty. I'm just being naughty. That's all.
Yeah, I wish they would listen. Yeah.
Okay, we will have more time to discuss in our next segment. We need to take a break, and sorry we did lose some time, but we'll try to make it up. We'll be back soon. Thank you, viewers, for being with us, and we hope that you will come back soon with us after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking to our guest today, Dr. Sonia Zaman Khan, a lawyer, an eminent lawyer residing in London, and she has practiced here in this country at the Supreme Court, and also she has practiced at Bangladesh Supreme Court. Dr. Sonia, you have divided your experience in third sector experience and ethnic minority enterprise projects and East London, Tower Hamlets, Newham, Hackney, then Community Organization Forum, COF, and Tower Hamlets Community, and then also some Education Forum. Can you describe us what were these, what kind of experience was this, and who benefited, and to what result?
Right, okay. My life has been divided into legal practice, right, as well as consultancies. So right. Consultancies I have, just as in legal practice in Bangladesh and in the United Kingdom. Right. The third sector experience is also in Bangladesh as well as in the United Kingdom. Right. So in the context of the United Kingdom, my third sector experience is about for about 8 years or so. So I was involved for 3 different projects mainly. One was an organization called Community Organizations Forum, which now no longer exists. It was the community and voluntary sector, sort of for Tower Hamlets. Yes. So all the third sector organizations that were in Tower Hamlets, right, the voice was the Community Organizations Forum. So it helped in capacity building, it helped in networking with the Tower Hamlets Partnership, which is the council. It helped to have basically the residents' voice as well as the voices of the third sector heard in the local government. So I sort of facilitated that in terms of making sure that the advocacy happens, the needs of the grassroots are actually heard at policy making level. So that was the work with Community Organizations Forum. It was a wonderful experience. I think in 3 years my learning curve was pretty sharp, pretty perpendicular. Right. With the Ethnic Minority Enterprise Project, the EMEP, was also a small organization where they were, I was involved with the project from the London Development Agency, the LDA, in order to make sure that small organizations, women in small organizations and businesses had capacity building, in the sense that I made a training needs analysis. So whatever was sort of a gap or lacuna in their training for their businesses or for their organizations, I mapped that and we sent them through those trainings so that they are better empowered to perform in their organizations and businesses. So that was the Ethnic Minority Enterprise Project with them. It was it was sort of sponsored by the LDA at that point in time. And then I also worked with Summer Education UK, which was basically again an organization which had summer university schools across
Right.
London. So we
Right.
had for the summer, placement of young people. But we also sort of delivered, sort of empowered young people within the age of 14 to 25 with projects that they may have to sort of better their environment. So I was sort of looking after that project as well to make sure that 82 Millennium Award sort of winners contributed in sort of in the community through their projects, through their sort of their own tailor-made projects. So that was also very interesting, actually, an interesting 3 years spent.
Right. With that experience, you think that you can advise the community clients in a much better way?
Yes, I think it was good to know Tower Hamlets, Newham, and Hackney, because these are the three boroughs I worked
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and to understand the problems of the young people, of the grassroots, of the elder community, the issues. I was sort of basically a go-in between the policymakers and them. So it helped me to understand what the issues really are burning in these boroughs, in these deprived boroughs.
Right.
Yes.
We'll take a step back and travel back to Bangladesh, see, and your third sector experience, see, Transparency International. Uh, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this very transparent, supposed to be very transparent organization, see. And it seems that whatever its findings or research, you see, a lot of people are not happy with it. I'm sure that transparency does not bother about who is happy, who is not, see. But is there something, basically something wrong, misunderstanding of Transparency International, particularly its Bangladesh outfit?
Right. And Transparency International Bangladesh has been there for a long time. I think with any government government comes into power, and if Transparency International brings in their researches and
Right.
reports saying that, well, you're not doing X, Y, and Z correctly,
Right.
I don't think governments, whether it's in developing nations or developed nations, take it very well. Let's put it
Yep.
that way.
Yep.
Some of the projects they have done are really good, especially projects relating to women, relating to governance.
Right.
The particular project that I have been recently involved with Transparency International as a consultant, was actually, I found that work, I was headhunted for this actually, and it was on women's vulnerability to criminal liability for corruption committed by the spouse of male family members.
Right.
So you have what basically means that you have mothers, wives, daughters, sisters,
Right.
in whose name property is sort of, you'd find property in their name, and such property are questionable because they may not have been,
An income.
the taxes for them. Yes, exactly. And what happens is when the documentary, when the evidence comes in, they see that everything, the Anti-Corruption Commission sees that everything is against the woman, although the women often
Right.
are quite, they don't know about it. They don't know what has happened.
Right.
So this is actually was a research on them as to the social context of such women, why are they so vulnerable?
Right.
Why are the property, do they do this as abettors? Are they really innocent victims? So it was a study on that, which I found very interesting. I've just given the report in, so we are waiting for the pandemic to be over so that we can take it to the next stage, the advocacy stage, and try to sort of change certain laws which incriminate women who are otherwise innocent. So this is a good piece of work that TIB is actually doing in Bangladesh.
Right. You're also involved with Save the Children Fund in Bangladesh, isn't it?
Oh, that was a long time ago, yes. That was a good 20 years ago, actually. Save the Children UK
Trust,
Fund,
yes.
In Trust, yes, with the Bangladesh Legal Aid Services Trust, BLAST. Together they went, they did this research, which I was leading, and it was on actually the rehabilitation of juvenile offenders.
Right.
So in the name of safe custody, all these young children are actually picked up, whether they on sort of various grounds, whether it's as witness protection plan, whether in elopement cases, whether as victims of kidnapping or rape, whether as vagrancy arrests. And all these children of various ages, in the name of safe custody, suffer a lot in the police or in whichever correctional facilities there are, the inhuman conditions they live in. All kind of molestation, rape happen there. So it was a study with all those children. I mean, as many as we could get. We did about 12 group studies, and came up with, it was a one-year research. We came up with good recommendations, not only for the police, but also for the judiciary and the legislatures, as to how we can ameliorate all these children's fate and condition. So that was also a very, very good project. The work is still one of the few work having been done on such children. So it still remains a valid, very much a valid work, and still quite referred.
You have just touched upon something which is very close to my heart, the vulnerability of women folk in Bangladesh, you see. And hardly a day passes we do not read about an XYZ girl walking from this place to that place was kidnapped, raped and murdered, see. And this has been happening. I mean, this does not seem to make headlines. This is an everyday affair. We are headlines, one day they go to back pages and then they disappear, see. But we in our profession, we try to keep them alive by talking about so many victims. The cases have not been solved, see. What is the problem with our courts, that the cases are pending, dates are given, and a lawyer whom I interviewed, he told me that there are hundreds and thousands of cases pending and just waiting for a particular date to be heard, and this or that reason is given for either this man is not available, that man is not available, somebody is sick, somebody is away. The desire is not there to solve the issue.
To be fair to the court, I mean, first of all, you have to see the number of the population rate of the country.
Right.
And you have to say that thousands and thousands of cases are actually lodged every day, and they are pending. And there are times when the court, when they say that, okay, the opponent is not there, the opposite party is not there, we need to take time. The court, in order, sort of they have to, for fair trial, they do have to postpone it. So sometimes they postpone it for a week, 2 weeks, the person is still not there, give them another date, another 2 weeks, another 4 weeks, 5 weeks, court goes on vacation, come back after vacation. So things are stalled in that way.
It's all right for the solicitor and the lawyers, see. It's the poor person that he has to travel from a village to the city or the upazila, and then he has to pay for the lawyer to appear at the court, see. And he goes back empty-handed.
Not always. I wouldn't say, I mean, part of what you're saying is correct, but it's always not the case. And we also have something over the last couple of years which has developed. I'm sure you know about it, is public interest litigation. And a lot of the public interest litigation are actually done free of cost, pro bono. Lawyers don't take money for that.
Right.
And you also have quite a few lawyers who actually regularly in the profession do pro bono cases too, to be fair. Maybe the number need to increase, but it is happening. And I know quite a few of my junior friends, colleagues as well, who regularly do pro bono cases. And myself, I have done a couple of pro bono cases myself in employment matters, and I did not charge the way normally lawyers charge. I did not. So it depends on the conscience of the lawyer. The lawyers also have to earn, remember that. That's also a profession.
Right.
But having said that, yes, what you've said is correct also, but it's also true that they do get redress. But of course...
After 10 years.
Yes, it does take time. But not always after 10 years. Now, the Chief Justice over the last couple of years have actually sort of, I wouldn't say burdened, but actually put pressure on various courts to sort of dispose of the matters as quickly as possible.
Right.
And courts are under constant pressure to clear
Right,
cases,
right.
and they
See.
do that, as much as possible. At least I can tell you about the Supreme Court. The judges there, the esteemed judges there, are working very hard to dispose of matters as soon as possible. But sometimes it's inevitable, the situation is such that it's
Yeah,
inevitable
but
to be
not every
cleared.
case is referred to Supreme Court, isn't it?
No, not every case is referred to the Supreme Court. Of course not. Yes, it's only. Yes.
Dr. Sonia, you as a lady who has gone through good times and you have had the opportunity to educate yourself well, gather experience, indulge in publications, researches and all that. You have met good number of people, highly placed people. See, how do you see women empowerment issue in Bangladesh? See, uh, don't tell me about that women are working in the sweatshops of garment companies and they are making money 21 cents a day, 16 persons living in a room. That's not women empowerment.
No, that's not women empowerment. Well, that's arguable. That's not women empowerment. But you see, I think in terms of not only in garment sector, in every sector, whether you see it in bureaucracy, whether you now see in business, whether now you see in professions, in whether they're doctors, nurses, you see the majority actually in Dhaka city. I don't know about outside Dhaka city. Every time it's Dhaka that I go back to, in hospitals, and you see a lot more women who are educated and who are coming forth in various sort of professions. Women empowerment per se, if you see the education level, it's girls who are doing far better than boys, whether it's in HSC or whether it's in SSC.
They have always done better than boys, I think,
They
even
have, they
nowadays.
have, they have, but then you see young people are, they don't think of being a homemaker as the only sort of option. They
Right.
see that, no, okay, I will be a homemaker, or I may not be a homemaker, I'll definitely be a professional. You see that trend in cities, actually. In the countryside, what's the situation? I think I see more and more, I see very confident people, at least in Dhaka, those who are not that well off, in terms of their confidence in investing. For example, I'll give you examples of say people, domestic helps, that it's very difficult to find domestic help in Dhaka nowadays.
Yep.
And so even if you do
That's a good
happen to
sign.
get one,
That's
yeah,
a good
that's a very
sign.
good sign. That's a very good sign. And not only that, they are quite practical and pragmatic in the sense that they will work in 3-4 places,
Yep.
but they are thinking about investing money for property. I've seen that
Right.
at my own home, and they would say that, Appa, would you like to help me? I'm trying to buy a home or trying to buy a land. This is independent of the husband, So I think if you see it in that micro level, when you're there and whatever the newspapers say is, of course, we see it, but when you are actually living there, you do see these, these snapshots, which makes you think that, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. The woman was barely clad in a proper sari, barely
true.
had a sandal, or had torn blouse or no blouse.
Right.
So in that context, I think things have changed somewhat.
Well, I agree with you to a great extent, because every year I go to Bangladesh and I visit villages, and I go to girls' schools particularly to encourage them and to help them in any which way that I can see. And I'm happy that the young girls attending classes, they are happy to listen to somebody who understands their problems, you see.
Yeah.
That is communications. I tell the teacher that please do try to understand their problems. It's not just don't tell them, give them the book and go and study.
Sure.
Behind that face there is a person. Try to
Yes.
understand and also encourage them to do other things, not just reading books. You see, as you said that you apart from reading books, you also indulge in debating and reading and writing and cultural functions. Even music is good for the mind.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
And sports.
Absolutely. I think in governance, we need to have a pluralistic approach in Bangladesh, when it comes to democratic governance. And I think a same pluralistic approach can be taken in a personal life as well.
True.
I think that's always healthy, to do things in a multifocal way. And I think the younger generation are far more confident in Bangladesh than we were, for example. I see them very driven, very confident, and what we couldn't dream of doing sort of even in 10 years experience, they think about doing it from year one, which I marvel at actually.
Well,
So
we will be running short of time, you see, so I would like to ask you one question.
yes.
In your very interesting career, have you come across something very unusual that you would like to share with us and that would benefit our viewers? Something unusual in your legal profession, as a person, as an educationist, as a writer, whatever you have seen in the world.
What I have, well, I can share with you one experience I had, which put me in a bit of a shock as a child, let's put it that way. From the top of my head, I wasn't prepared for this one. It was when my father had various postings, and one of the postings was actually in Islamabad, right? This is where I was doing my my O-level, GCSE's O-level, GCE at that time it was. And one day in our sort of Independence Day, there was invitation at our home, so the Pakistani foreign minister came up to our home, and he was actually our neighbor. I didn't realize that he was our neighbor. So he came up to me and he said, hello, young lady, Ami tomar shab gopun katha jani, So that threw me completely in year 9. He was like, first of all, the Pakistani foreign minister is speaking to me in Bangla. And then he's teasing me because he was like, oh, you play badminton, I see that. And I watch, I see Amit Tomar Shab Gopun Katha Jani. I just didn't know how to react to that, So that threw me off guard as a young girl.
What was the name of that prime minister?
He was the foreign minister. It was Shahabzada Yaqub Khan.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
There were two brothers. His brother was a general in Indian Army, and they fought each other in 1965 war from both the sides.
Right.
We have come to almost the final minute of this program. Thank you very much for being with us. We did lose some time, but inshallah we will meet again some sunny day, as Dame Vera Lynn said, but we do not know when, we do not know where. But I'm sure that it will be NTV. Thank you very much for coming along. Bye for now. See you sometime again soon. Thank you for being with us, viewers. We hope that you've enjoyed the show as much as we have. Sorry about some of the technical glitch, but that is part of our life. We have to depend on technology, and technology doesn't come free. It comes at a price. I'm not talking about money, but the trouble that it can cost. Thank you very much. We'll see you at same time, same channel next week. In the meantime, take care.